Today I'm here to talk with you about from zero to built-in AI hero. And well, why are we doing this? Well, because AI is here to say, because AI can help you, because AI is something that we can very likely integrate in one way or the other into your workflow. And I want to show you at a very hands-on example today how this could work. So agenda-wise, what are we going to do? We're going to learn about the Summarize API, about the Prompt API with both structured output and multimodal input. We will talk about the Writer and the Rewriter API. And finally, we will talk about the Translator API. So what is the thing that we are doing? I already hinted a bit about traveling. So I traveled from Barcelona to here. This is a travel blog. So you can see there's a whole bunch of stories that people wrote about places, about, for example, Prague. Anyone from Prague in the room? Yes, woo! So people from Prague in the room who might recognize some of the things that are written in this. You have a destinations landing page, and you can zoom in on countries. Anyone from Kenya? No? Well, that's harder to meet here than people from Prague, I guess. Affiliate links at the end, map, again, some commenting section. You have tag navigation, so you can go back and forth, and so on. So you get the point. It is a travel blog. And there's blog content, of course. So blog content needs to be written. And for this blog also has an admin section. And in this admin section, you can just directly edit the blog content. So here, the person is editing the title. And you can see on the right-hand side, the preview updates more or less in real time. The title here is changing, so more and more words get added. Now they're adding some tags. So you can see the tag list will update any second now. Tips, and now we have the new tag and so on. So you get the point. It's a blog editor, but for now it is bare bones. This is about becoming an AI hero. So I will show you how in this blog we will have APIs like the Summarizer API added for profit, so that your life as a content editor becomes easier. So in this case, we're having two new buttons here. So suggest title using AI and suggest a description using AI. So I'm someone, I like writing titles, but writing SEO descriptions, that's like the most tedious task. I really hate that. So when I can just click a button, get something that I just need to refine, for me, that's a big, big life improvement. So let's have a look at how this could work in practice. So we put the finishing touches to our blog post here, so happy reading, whatever, and then we scroll up, and now we need a title. And we can just ask AI to generate one for us. And if you read the blog post, this is actually a pretty accurate description here. So it has some content about food, about Gaudí, but also about getting ripped off at Las Ramblas. So this title is something that AI came up with, but we can still refine it. It's not something that we need to live with. AI is here to help us. It's not something that is completely controlling how our content looks like. And how does it work? Well, first we need references to our blog post in a text, so that we just get the pure text, but still containing the structure of it, so with the paragraphs and so on. So we do this by getting the inner text. We have our headline, we get a reference to it, and then we reset the headline text content to nothing. And up next, we can create the summarizer. And in this case, our expected input and output languages are simply English. We have a context language, which is also English. And the output language will be English as well. And the type of this is headline. So we want headlines based on the blog post content. And then finally, we have the shared context. And in this case, we tell the AI what we want the AI to do. When it writes a summary, it should be writing click inviting headlines. So click inviting, not clickbaity. That's a big difference. And after we have the summarizer initialized, we can then finally call the summarizer's summarize streaming method, passing it the blog post content, and then we just append chunk by chunk as the AI comes up with a new headline for us. For the SEO description, it's almost the same. So if you look, only a small section of this code has changed. So the description instead of the headline is what we get from the HTML. And then we change here the type. It becomes teaser. Before it was headline. So here we want a teaser. And the shared context now is write SEO descriptions. And everything else is exactly the same, so the same logic, just for different use cases. One is we want to get a headline. The other is we want to get a teaser text. And this API is supported as of Chrome 138. So you can use that today, and since a long time ago already, actually. Now we have Chrome 149, so just to put things in perspective a little. So this is the Summarize API. And this is hopefully something that is interactive. So this is a workshop. So you are very much invited to go to this URL, or you can also just scan this barcode, QR code here and clone the repository. If you clone this repo, install it locally, run the npm start function, which will then bring up a local server, where you should see instructions like this. Then, in step 4, you will have a hacking section, and in step 5, you will have a solution section. So this is then what you should see if you open the code locally. So this is how it should look like. Of course, your IDE will be different. I'm using VS Code and dark theme. You might be using something else. I don't know. I have already ran the serve command here. So I have a local server that is now running on localhost, in this case 3000. And I can start hacking. And you should land on a page like this. And with that, can we switch over to my laptop, please? Yes, perfect. So this is the GitHub page that you should see. You just clone it, so just the usual clone, or you can also just download the zip. That's also completely fine. Then you install this locally, run it on your computer, and you should be, when you serve localhost, so it should look something like this. And if you scroll down, you can see there's different steps that we're going to work through. This is the start command that you already ran. And then it points at the starter.html, which should look something like this. You can see already there's different steps. So step 1 is the summarizer. Step 2 is prompt, multimodal, writer, rewriter, and so on, yada, yada. And this is a classic fill the gap kind of exercise. So everything is already there. So if you press the big summarize button here, you will see that nothing happens. Well, why does nothing happen? Because we haven't hooked up the exercise yet. So if you go into the code, which is on your local machine somewhere here, you should see step 1. Let me also here increase the font size. But of course, you also have it locally on your own machines. So yeah, this should be the code that powers what you see in step 1. And if you go back, there's also a solution section. So for each of those, you have a solution. Let me go to Summarizer. And the solution step is always blue. So if we now press the Summarize button, it should also work locally and hopefully do something. And if you look at what it actually is summarizing, it is summarizing this article here in this section up here. And then we can already see now we have our summary. OK, so first exercise now is for you to go into the summary exercise, so step 1, summarizer, and try to make it work. You will see in the code there are to-dos. So there's to-do 1, there's to-do 2, and so on. And if you look closely, there's always hints. So hopefully you don't get stuck. And of course, you always have the solution local as well. So you can also just go there and check how it is supposed to work. But yeah, the fun of it is, of course, trying to get it to work locally. And with this, I just give you a couple of minutes where you can go through and yeah, just see if you can get it to work. Every now and then, of course, go back to the browser, check by reloading if your button is working now, if something has changed. So just give yourself a couple of minutes to understand what is going on here. And also definitely, as I said, work with the hints that are in the code. So I will try to do it myself a little bit. Let's see. So I made the first change. And oh, classic. You see what happened here? Object promise, woohoo. So you will definitely encounter things like this. So don't get disencouraged. If something is unclear, of course, raise your hand. Ask your facilitators what is going on, why this is not working. Go to the solutions, check out what the solutions are. And like this, you will hopefully then figure out slowly what the point of everything is. So I'm just glancing at my solution here, just to show the entire flow. So we get the availability, and then we get the status back. OK. And then we can go here, check out the solution. It says available here. So I was not awaiting it. Let's see what happens. And now you can see now it's available. So now things slowly start to work. So let's see what else is happening. The second tip, I need to create the summarizer. So here. Anyone finished already? Does it work for someone? Yes, perfect. So a lot of people are a lot faster than me. I'm, of course, just winning some time here. Oops. So let's see what's happening. Just going back. OK, we're getting closer, but we don't have the summary quite yet. So the final hint is we need to actually call the summarize function and just somehow hook it up. So let's see. I'm getting the stream. So let's see what it does. Oh, this looks pretty promising. Woohoo! So I have hooked up my summarizer, and it is working. So hopefully, it's working for some of you as well. And then if you go to the solution, it should have more or less the same structure, just be something that is already there. And the other one is the one that you built. There's a question in the first row. Yeah, perfect. And this is seeming to work. So let's try with generating a headline. And what do we get? Yes, we get a headline for this. We can play with the format, so let's make it longer. And we do indeed get a longer headline. So you get the point. This is how it works. And with that, let me go back to my slides, please. Perfect. So the next topic that I want to talk about is the prompt API with structured output. So what is this all about? Before I showed you when I was playing the demo video, the tags. So how can I get tags into the block? There's this new button, suggest tags using AI. So how does it work? Let's roll the video here. So we start with a manual tag. I'm typing in Barcelona. And then I'm pressing the Get Tags button. And now we have some more tags that appear here. So this is the flow. This is what we want. Of course, it's still editable. We can delete AI-generated ones that we're not happy with. We can add new ones that AI may have ignored or forgotten. And that's essentially the idea. So for a moment, assume that this were just some sort of perfect travel block with a really fixed taxonomy of tags that they can use. So for this, we need somehow to structure the model and give it only a list of options that it can choose from. So you can see already, this is hinting at this big enum playing a big role. So this enum has adventure, Argentina, Australia, beach, Brazil. So just all of the allowed tags that this blog may use. But why are we doing this? Well, if you look at this, you're looking actually at a JSON schema. JSON schema is a way of expressing in JSON how a JSON object may look like. So JSON schema, we have an object, we have properties, we have tags, and then this tags object has an array type, and in this array we may have items, and these items are of type string, and they may only come from the enum that you can see here. This tags field is actually required, so we put it as a required field, and then this means no additional properties. So we will only get something like this. So in practice, we're hoping to get an object like this. And by specifying a JSON schema, like over here, we're making sure that all the objects that the API will generate will look like this. Of course, the tags content will vary, but the overall structure will remain exactly stable. So we can be super sure about this tags field always being here, there always being an array, so we can iterate over it and so on, which makes programming with the AI output a lot more predictable. So how do you use this now? First, of course, as before, we need to give the API the blog post content. So again, I'm passing it the inner text so that it has knowledge more or less about the structure of the blog post. And then we store this big JSON schema that you've seen before in a variable that I call response constraint. And then we create a session with the language model. So language model.create, we pass it the expected inputs and expected outputs, which in this case is the same. They are of type text. And the languages that we allow in this case are English. And now with the session, we can then actually start prompting the model. And as I told you, because we have this response constraint in place, we can just be sure that whatever comes out of this session.prompt method to be a JSON object. So we can just wrap the entire thing into a JSON.parse, which will give us back the tags. And then, of course, at some point, we need to actually call the session.prompt function, create tags for the given blog post, and then we pass it the blog post. So this is how it works. The language model API has launched in Chrome 148. And with this, can we go back to my computer, please, for the second exercise? Perfect. OK, second exercise, we need to open step 2, the prompt API. And then, as before, we walk through our tips. So there's the to-do 4. We need to call the language model availability function with the correct format. So like that. And we need to set the status as before. Oops, this time waiting, and then we can pass it down here. And of course, as before, we can now go and check, does it still work? So now you can see it became available. So we've hooked up the first part. So let's go back and see what else is there to do. So to-do 5 is now we need to create a language model session. So I can just copy this entire block and put it down here. I know there's a faster way to uncomment those lines, but by making it one by one, I'm just winning some time to give you the time to follow up. And then we have the session in place. So let's look at what is actually happening here. So we have the expected inputs and outputs. We have the monitor function for the download progress that we hook up to our download progress bar. And then next, we have our to-do number 6 that we can work with. And here, what we're actually doing is we are prompting the model. So let's see what all of this does, line by line. So we get a raw response back by prompting the model, pick relevant tags for this travel blog post. We pass it the article. We pass in the response constraint that is generated up here. This is the tag schema with the enums that we have up here. And this gives us back the raw JSON string that we can then parse. So we call JSON parse, which then will give us back the tags that we can then just map one by one and put it in our chips kind of markup here. If you go back to here, refresh, and there they are. So now we've generated the tags. And if you go back to the solution, so let's actually just do that real quick. Structured output, prompt, generate tags. We should hopefully get maybe a little different because it's LLM, so it's not 100% reproducible, but we will get back more or less the same tags. OK, you've seen structured output now, which makes working with the AI model predictable because we know what we will get back will be a JSON object. So you've seen the prompt API with structured output. Next, I want to show you prompt API with multimodal input. So giving it information that is multimodal. So let's see how this looks like. The core idea is you have markup like this, and you paste an image into the blog, and you want to get alt text, and you want to get a nice image caption like this. So how does it work in practice? We have a blog post here. At least here is an image, colon, and then I press the add image button. Beautiful picture of Park Güell. I open it. You can see AI starts processing the image. And then we have the image down here. We have a beautiful figure caption that, of course, we can still edit if you don't like it. So again, AI is not the final truth. AI is a tool that helps us. So here I'm removing the sparkle emoji because it didn't add much value. Up here, you can see there's an alt text, which again, of course, you can edit. Here I'm removing part of the figure caption. And how does it work? So essentially, it is pretty much the same JSON schema idea as before, because again, we want a structured output. We want to get, this time, an object back that has an alt and a caption field for the alt text and for the figure caption. And both are required. We don't want additional properties. And with this JSON schema, what we hope to get back is something like this. So alt with, for example, a view of Eiffel Tower and a caption, best view in the 7th arrondissement. So this is also the idea of having a difference between what is alternative text and what is a figure caption. So AI can help us in both cases. Let's have a look. We've seen most of it before. So most of it is pretty similar. We have the response constraint, where we store the JSON schema. And then we have the options that we pass to the AI model. This time, it's a little bit more complex, because we have expected inputs and outputs as before. But now we also have type image, because multimodal, we're not just passing text into the model. We're also passing an image into the model. An initial prompt here sets a system prompt, where we tell the model that it is an expert at writing accessible alternative text and engaging captions for the blog, and it is supposed to return a JSON object and so on. So we just reassure that we really want a JSON object back. Then we create the session with exactly those options as before. And then next, we prompt the model. This time, the prompt is a little bit more involved just because it's multimodal. So we need to pass in the two modalities. So first, we have the text in this array here at content, where the value is describe this image for a blog post, focus on a concise alt text for accessibility and a creative caption. So this is the prompt paired with the system prompt to really make sure that the model gets the task that it's supposed to do. And then we pass it the image. And the way this works is really elegant, because we can just immediately pass it the HTML image element, which is why working on the web is so cool. You don't need to base 64 encode it or anything with like you do with many APIs. You can just really literally pass it the image if you want to. And then as before, you pass it the response constraint, and then we parse the JSON response. So this is the image, and then we get back. So next is exercise 3. We start with to-do 7. So again, just like before, we need to check the availability. But again, this time, we need to check the availability with also type image, because some AI models may not support multimodal. They may only support text. So when we check the availability, we should be sure that we actually check both. So just as before, we have const status equals await this. And then we need to hook it up here. Status. This works. So we go to step 3. Yep, image support is there. So let's see the next to-do. There's a lot of boilerplate code, but then we have here to-do number 8, where we initialize the session with the expected input and expected output and our system prompt. So it's a pretty long function here. So let's, as before, uncomment it line by line so we can process what is happening. This is the download monitor that gives us information about the download progress if the model is not downloaded yet. Always a super best practice to call, because in many cases you may be dealing with a browser that has not downloaded the model, or maybe there's an update to the model, so the browser needs to re-download a new version. And let's see, now that we have a session, yep, this looks good. The to-do number 9 is we need to actually work with our session. So we need to hook this all up. So we have our session that has a role user. The content is the type text, as before, right? The alt text and the image caption. We pass it the image. And this is really just the uploaded image. So when we mouse over, we will see what this is, the image element. And then I'm just outputting the content here. So let's see if this works. So if I reload, I need to pass it an image. OK, so let's see. Do we have an image? Unsplash. And then we can pick it again. Downloads. Where is it? Here. And now I can press the button. It's analyzing the image, working, analyzing the image. And yes, we do get back something, which is great. So we get alt text, aerial view of Barcelona's cityscape, showcasing the distinctive architecture and sprawling urban layout with the Sagrada Familia as a central landmark. And indeed, this is actually the center of the image here. So this is the alt text. But then the caption, it's really different. It's not really describing what is happening in the image. It's just making a creative association with the image. So it's lost in a labyrinth of terracotta rooftops and so on. So it's more poetic in this case. Of course, if you are not happy with it, we can modify it. And this is also what we have in the solution. So you can see already this is the solution here. Nice. With that, can we go back to my slides? And again, the invitation, if you are working on this and get stuck or something is unclear, just raise your hand. And I know this is fast-paced, so don't worry. This project is for you to take home. The next one is the writer API. And well, it's a blog, so obviously someone needs to write stuff for the blog. And of course, we're humans. We want to read human-generated content. We don't want to read AI slop. But sometimes humans have writer's block. I definitely do. So there's moments where I know I need to write something, and yeah, I'm not in the mood. Another use case is you are on the road. So this is a travel blog. So you are on the road, and typing on a mobile phone is not really super ergonomic. So sometimes you just jot down a bunch of notes. So let's have a look at how this could look like. So imagine you come back from a trip, and you just take some rough keynotes, final thoughts. Barcelona is worth the trip. Definitely true. It's crowded, also true, but for a reason, yes, very much. It's super beautiful. Plan ahead, so the main sites have tickets. So Park Güell, if you ever want to go, get tickets way in advance. And then you can see the person is pressing the right button, and now we get a suggestion that we can base our own thoughts upon. We can modify this. Sometimes it might be something that we can almost live with. Sometimes it might be something that we want to reformulate. It's a help. It helps us get off the ground with something that we can start. Yep. OK, so how does this look like? Well, we have the writer that we create. We get a writer back from the AI. We get shared context that we pass in, so the user provides a few bullet points, expand them into a detailed blog post. And then we have expected input languages, English, and the output language, also English. And we call the streamer write streaming method. And we get back, like here in this case, just a bunch of bullet points that we can then expand and append onto our blog post draft. So that's the code behind it. The hardware requirements for this, you have seen this is running on mobile, but it's actually not really something that is supported on mobile quite yet. So for Android, we don't have support yet. So how can this work? The reason is we have hybrid solutions where we can use the cloud if we need to. We can use local models if they are available, but we can also go to the cloud in some cases. For this, we have what we call Firebase AI Logic, our hybrid solution that is recommended whenever you have any kind of situation like this where you need support for all devices, but the local API is not supported quite yet. We also have experimental polyfills, where you can just directly code against the API surface of the various APIs, so the prompt API directly, or some of the task APIs, like the summarizer, like the translator, and so on. So there's experimental polyfills that you can use. And in this case, you can see the writer API is behind a flag only. So it's something that we're working on in the Chrome team, but we are not in a stage yet where we say, like, this is something we can ship. So this is where flags come in. So if you want to play with this locally, you can go to Chrome/:/flags and enable the writer API and the rewriter API. We're running a bit short in time, so I will just skip the exercise here, but you're, of course, more than welcome to do it. The rewriter API is more or less the same idea, but rewriting means we have already something that we can base our writing upon. So let's have a look. If we mark this section that we are not quite happy with, we can say, OK, we want to make this more casual. We want to make it longer. And then we press the AI button, and we want to apply the AI rewrite just to the selection. And you can see the AI rewrites our preview here on the right-hand side, gets updated in real time. And that's essentially the idea. How does the code work? Almost the same as before with the writer API. Just now, it's the rewriter API. We have the shared context. We have the tone. In this case, we want to make it more casual. The format that we give it is Markdown, because the blog is authored in Markdown. We want to make it shorter. Expected languages are both English for input and output. And then, just as before, we have a streaming method that we can use. And browser support also behind the flag. And Translator API is also something that we have support for in this blog. So if you look at this, we can see on the right-hand side how it would work. So we have a blog post that is written in English. We make some changes. And then we can press the translate button at the very bottom here. This is the previous translation. Then we can press the translate button again. We just made some changes, and those changes get reflected directly in the translation, right in the browser. There was no cloud involved, all happening locally. This is how it works. You call the translator's create function. You pass it the source language and the target language, and then you just call the translate function. And this is literally everything. API, the translator API launched in Chrome 138. So it is ready for you to go. Polyfills, I mentioned them before. We do have polyfills that you can work with. The story is really, we have all those different APIs. Summarizer, language model, translator. We have the writer, the rewriter. We have the language detector, which is kind of the hidden champion, because all of those examples make use of the language detector if you don't want to hard code the input language. And for them, we can also launch the exercise and play with the exercise. But now, final tips. So if you want to work with this in production, we do have types for you. So if you install the @types DOM Chromium AI package, you will have TypeScript types for you to work locally. And of course, we have a lot of documentation. Our team has produced a whole bunch of documentation that you or your LLM is more than welcome to consume. We have modern web guidance, because if you work with the prompt API or with the summarizer API, you will notice that some of the LLMs are still on the old versions. So feed it our documentation, feed it modern web guidance, and just make your life as a developer easier by consulting our documentation here. So takeaways. Built-in AI is ready for production in Chrome. Some of the APIs have launched. We have very solid polyfills that you can build your solutions upon. We have Firebase AI logic that you can explore and use as a hybrid solution. Other browsers, for now, don't have support. There's support in Edge for some of the built-in AI functions, features. But again, the polyfills exist, so you can work with those in production. And of course, happy hacking. There's a lot of things you can take away from this. This is the blog that I showed. So if you want to play with this, goo.gle/trailblazers. So if you want to see how this works in practice, all the video playback that I showed, you can experience it. This blog post template also exists as a starter extended blog on our Google repo. So if after seeing this you want to start your own blog, this is the package that you want to install. It's an Eleventy-based template that you can just clone and use for starting your own blog. So you can have those AI features in your own blog. And of course, the documentation. Goo.gle built-in AI docs. And with this, thank you very much for this super quick tour. I know there's some exercises we didn't get to, but you have the code. You can play with this at home. Thank you very much for listening.